Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Socially Single. I'm V, and we have another episode of 90 Day Fiance. We're in season 17. This is episode 5. Something old and something new is the name of this episode. We are going to be talking about Marissa and Edward. And we didn't get to see them last episode, so we're going to be seeing them. We saw them this time around. And I'm going to just tell y'all now, for the most part, I'm liking Edward. I am. He just has he has a real jovial personality, and we kind of got to see that. So let me get into what we're going to be talking about with them. So, of course, we left off with Edward just being picked up by Marissa from the airport, and they're headed back to, I think it's New Jersey or Philadelphia, to go back to her house. And Edward is just excited. We didn't get to see like a lot of where Edward came from back home, but I think that we've seen enough of the DR to understand that he's coming from less than what most of us may have here in the States. And not only is he coming from a certain background, he's moving here on the upper middle class part of things, right? Marissa may not be rich, and she's not some like super overwhelmingly wealthy person with super high to-dos. I do think she's obviously she's solidly middle class, and that in itself seems like such a very high step up for Edward, and he's acting as such. And you know what? He should. He about hit the jackpot. And so he's like, I've never been in a BMW before. Now, he doesn't know that Marissa's just driving around in a 530i with not too many options, but he don't really know that. Like, it's a BMW at the end of the day. He ain't never been in one. He said, this is nice. It's comfortable. He's not all of them, but they may have, obviously, vans and trucks and buses over there in the DR. They be having those little jitney vans, those little trucks. She's like, no, put your seatbelt on. And he's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. And he's like, I have to just get used to all of this. And of course, we see them driving to the streets and into the suburb where she lives, and he pulls up to the house. He's like, oh my God, this house is super big. And of course, I'm not going to be coming here I'm not going to, read too much into things. While Marissa's house may be $1 million, it's $1 million because it's in Philadelphia. Okay. If her house was near my house in Georgia, my house might be worth a little bit more than Marissa's. Our house is, a lot of house. And so, and that's that her house isn't nice. It is just sometimes for me very fresh to see people's genuine excitement, and he's allowing that to come off in the camera. And she's trying to bring it down, and of course this is her everyday life, and I'm like, this is the jovial nature that I just enjoy seeing. We even get this scene, and y'all, I was just laughing myself off, where she has one of those touch color faucets. When you touch it, the water comes on. You touch it again, the water goes off. And he's like, oh, shh. And I'm just like, he is like a little kid. He's like, what the shit is this? Like, you Americans have everything. Who needs this? This is so unnecessary. But it's fun. Excuse me, y'all. Don't laugh since I had a cough up. I'm just getting on my cold. And so I enjoyed all of that. And I wanted to get the little fun part the way because it gets sour a little bit. So as soon as they walk in, it's clear that Marissa has a certain way of doing things. And we now get to see the controlling side of Marissa. So soon as he walks in, they make it to the kitchen past the foyer, and she's like, hey, your shoes need to come off. And he's like, Why? She's like, you done been walking through two different airports, and you done been all around. So I'm not gonna have this stuff tracking all over my house and everything. I don't know where your feet been, so they need to come off. And it's like, here's the thing. There's plenty of people here in the States, everywhere, and some cultures is a standard where the shoes coming off at the door, of course, to walk around the house. I have inside shoes that I don't wear outside at all. They're only for the inside, like house shoes, right? And so while I understand that, it's just her delivery of how she says stuff. And this is what I have been wanting to get to into seeing how this is going to go. With her being older and her being in a financially dominant position in this relationship, I really wanted to know how was she going to treat this man in terms of incorporating her into her life. And so he's like, okay, for him, she's barking just rude. Before he even go upstairs, before he see the kitchen good enough, he's already like, okay, here we go. This is how it's going to be. So let me just roll with this. So she takes him to the house. They get to the bedroom. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. While the house is nice enough, I think that we might have been expecting just a little bit more from someone who is in a very high position of Kleinfeld Bridal, which has its own show, and you're bringing a certain amount of money. Now, of course, the bulk of her income can be just going to just maintaining everything, having a BMW, then having a condo, and now having a house in the northeast part of the country where it's already inflated prices, and then traveling back and forth to work. I'm sure she has a pretty high overhead. I have a high overhead, and I know that I don't make what the hell she's making. And so I get it. However, when we were looking, I was like, okay, Marissa, it's just time to go ahead and start doing some updates. This is just a little dated. And it's just, you took good care of it now. It's just time to do a little updating. And even in me saying that and just being a little bit, having a little fun shade, I do think it's an opportunity to allow him to bring his culture into the house because her house is bland. It can use some color. It can use a little pick-me-up to this. So she takes him to the bedroom, and we get into her bathroom, and we find out, she's like, my ex-husband wasn't allowed to use my bathroom. He had to go use the bathroom down the hall. And share that with the kids. Now, listen, we got to be honest here. Is it possible that there are just some men who are not considerate when they use the bathroom, and she just ain't want all that around her toilet? That's highly possible. That's very probable. And she was like, if you ain't for to clean it up behind yourself, I ain't for to deal with that. That's not my issue too tough. Why does her bathroom have two totally different showers? One that has an enclosure and apparently one that does not, which I think is a regular bathtub that has a shower in it. And she just happens to, so she has a 5-piece. It looks like, maybe it's a 4-piece. I don't know if I saw double sinks. And she had tile countertops with the grout. Now, the grout was white and looked clean, but she got tile countertops. It's time for an update, Marissa. It's time for you to get your interior designer in there. It's time to let your husband, because I'm sure he's a laborer of some sort. Somewhere probably to do with construction. If I'm just guessing, Mike has some knowledge, but it's time to do some updates. I'm just saying. It may have been cute 15 years ago when you bought the house, but it ain't hitting on nothing. So she said that they have 2 bathrooms, and this is her shower. And he's privileged to use this shower tonight, but that'll be the last time he uses it. And she said, we're going to do a trial one to see. So he's like, oh, I'm special because you don't normally have anyone in here. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, cool. It's been 6 years since Mike has moved out the house. And so therefore, maybe that's why he moved out, because you wouldn't let him use the bathroom attached to y'all's bedroom. And also, I got to ask the question, if you fab like this, then you get a house that's going to be fab. which means you both have separate bathrooms that are attached to the master, or the primary. So we're gonna move on. That's that realtor in my head kind of going. That's my realtor in my head kind of going. And I get triggered with people who want to push off as they're more than what they are, but then your life's not really managed. So he's like, I'm privileged and so on and so forth. But of course, she's laying down the law. And then she's also establishing not only the rules of the household, but the way in which she's doing it, y'all, was like, I also need you to feel appreciative, and I need you to feel privileged that this is what I'm doing for you. That's really what that was. And Edward is 31 years old. Of course he picked up on that. As someone who's had to work in the tourism industry in his country and has to cater to these expats and these Americans coming through there and flaunting that they have more than what they have, I'm sure he picked up on those microaggressions and those little small things that where it was. It gets deeper. So, of course, before they go to bed, he shows her his new equipment down there because remember he had the circumcision. And yes, we come to find out that when they first got together intimately, she did make a damn comment about his junk down there, and that made him feel insecure. And so he felt like he had to change it, of course, because she didn't really care for it. And while we don't know the condition of it and there was something else going on, it did not sound like he had to have it done, but he made a comment about it, and from that very first time them getting together, and she's probably made some other comments about his junk. He was just like, you know what, let's get a change, and when it's changed, there ain't no refund. So what I got, I'm very happy with it, but some people it's gonna be moving forward, and so. Of course, they have fun that night, and luckily, we didn't have to get into this whole thing about it. I'm so happy that production had class and didn't do that whole, let's sit here and see how the bed is going. These are classy-based people. They didn't do all that, like how Shay and Anna was just everything. Their first night. So we didn't do any of that, and I appreciated it that we got that. And so then, of course, they get up in the morning, and she's like, okay, in the morning time, I want to go for a run. It's a beautiful day. I want you to see how things are. So of course she wants to show off, right? And she wants to, she wants him to see how lucky he is. And she wants to go for a power walk. And now, let me tell you something. Marissa is just one of those type of women. She is bones. She is bones. And honestly, I already felt that Marissa didn't necessarily look her age. But the way that she's acting, I'm going to tell you right now, Marissa, you look like you're acting as if you're pushing 60. I'm just, like, you being this controlling person, it only makes you look older. Especially now that you have your little boy Candy, and you're kind of treating him like a child. Not kind of. This woman is treating Eric like a child, okay? She is. She is, and I have a funny feeling that she's not going to let him be the man that he wants to be, and that he's going to need to be to feel comfortable being in this arrangement that they're in. So they're out for a run, and of course she's power walking. He just ends up jogging next to her, and Edward got a little weight on him, and she's just a little bit of bones. I like how Edward look. Edward look cute, and then I have weight on my bones. I got a stomach, and he got a little rolls on the side too. So listen, and me and you good. I think you look just fine. And so during this, they begin to have a talk about him meeting Mike. Now, this was the biggest thing for her this whole time. She's been trying to prep us that Mike has this horrible attitude. He has a temper. And, you just need to be this and so on and so forth. And I said in the past, you can't control how these two men are going to interact with each other. They're going to read each other. And like I said, something telling me that these men are going to be fine. And so she's setting this up. And I appreciate on one hand saying, hey, let me just prepare you for who he is as a person. However, I do think that Marissa's intent was to be a bit biased. And she's giving him a lot of her on how she felt Michael is and because he don't play about his kids, she's turning that into he's just some super aggressive guy and you don't want to piss him off and so on and so forth. Edward is now set up like, well, I ain't no bitch. So he's automatically like, okay, well, he could be all as aggressive as he wants to, but I ain't no bitch either. So what you want to do about this? Like, he's already feeling like he's going to have to come on the defense about the things on top of his own natural anxiety about seeing the boys again, meeting them and interacting with them in this environment, and also knowing that this is on a vacation. He's going to be here permanently. So he's obviously concerned about where is his place going to be in this entire situation, considering the type of lifestyle that she lives. And he's like, you know, do they play like music loud out here? It's real quiet. And she's like, oh no, 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 no. Edward, yes, in some parts in the hood, in the lower part of towns, yes, the music be blasting loud. Where I'm from, Miami, the music be blasting loud. Okay, they just don't do it up there when it's just button up in Bluebell, Philadelphia. And you know, they don't do it in my neighborhood either. But some of us, we be blasting the music going down the street. Yes, that's true. It's just gonna be that ain't what the rest of people gonna be doing. And so remember, she classy base. So he already has anxiety, y'all, of this. Her kind of making this meeting feel like additional pressure on him, then allow this to be natural, is something that is a problem. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting the vibe that Marissa is secondary in this co-parenting relationship with her children. I think Mike is a bit more directive in how he wants things for the boys to do and being that father role relationship. And she is just more so, I have my space. And so, you know, I'm just here to kind of push them along where I need to. That's the vibe I'm getting from this co-parent relationship, if I'm being honest. And so the boys and Mike come to the house, and we finally get to see how this is going to go. So, of course, the boys, they hug him and embrace him like, you know, oh, my God, you're talking about remember you being, and just jesting with him. And, like, you know, he's like, well, you're talking about I remember you being. And so, and we found out that the boys have been to the Dominican Republic. They've already met Edward and spent time with him. They even have hung out with him. We saw pictures of them being in bed together, like, you know, just at the house or in the hotel room rather. So, like, he's already kind of gotten familiar with him. And so, you know, the boys, I think, are going to be fine overall. So, moment of truth, we get to where Mike and Edward finally meet. And Mike is like, you know, hey, what's up? How was your trip? Welcome here. And all that. And Edward's like, you know, hey, blah, blah, blah. You know, nice to meet you and everything else. Of course, you know, Mike has already seen his boys embrace him because Mike is, let me tell you something. Mike is already feeding off the energy of his boys in this case, because I didn't tell y'all this, but previously in the last episode, Mike found out about Edward, not from Marissa, but through his boys. And then he had to, you know, then go to Marissa, and he then found out about the situation. So Marissa already did not set this up in a way in which these two men could kind of come together, because you have Marissa trying to be very controlling and manipulative with how Edward is supposed to deal with Mike. And then you have Mike saying, I really don't, you know, I may not care about what she's doing in her personal life, but you're not really kind of coming to me with anything before doing certain things. Like, my boys have to tell me. So, so the both men are kind of coming with a certain little microaggressions and micro defense mechanisms to meet each other, right? And so, and so we see these two meet, and, you know, they're definitely nice enough to each other. And Mike says, hey, you know, like, from the pictures, y'all were like the same height. Like, I didn't know you was this tall. And Edward took that as, so you already coming for me right upon meeting you, because you haven't learned to say that I'm little. And that's what Edward heard. Now, I'm going to be honest, because, you know, if you don't know, the same way that women be talking about each other and making comments, men do the same thing. Like, we just may not be as vocal about it, but there are just certain things that we say that can be, it sends a message. And one thing another man doesn't want to hear from another man is, hey, you a little guy. I'm 6'5" and I'm very proud about my stature. So have people be like, oh my God, I didn't know you was as tall as you were. Yeah, like, oh yeah, I'm pretty tall. But if I hear it from another man, it's like, I ain't. Now, my height tends to be, I have been in a situation where because of my height, I'm not going to go to too long of a diatribe, but my height, it can be a challenge for certain men. And they can feel some type of way about that. And so they see that as a challenge. And I'm someone who I'm like, I don't care how tall you are or how short you are. Listen, you stay in your lane, you move how you move. I'm going to say my name and say how I move. But I'm not going to, I just don't feel the need to have to alpha another man. However, I do see a need to be very clear about my stance and things, and you're not going to disrespect me. And just because of how I move, I don't have those problems. So to Edward, even in me saying that, he felt a little taken aback when that comment was made. Now, I don't think Michael actually meant it like that. I think it was just a way of him breaking the ice, because it's true. When Marissa's in heels and all that, she's not a short woman herself. She probably does look the same height. And he hasn't really seen like a full picture of it. Like, he probably couldn't tell. So that probably threw him off a little bit. However, we have to remember something. Marissa has already set Edward on the defensive with dealing with Mike. So, unfortunately, this is where we're at. So anyway, they go outside for a bit, and he jumps on the trampoline with the boys. The boys show him moves and all that kind of stuff. And Marissa and Mike are like, this, you too big to be on this trampoline. You too old to be doing all this. And I'm like, this is a big kid. Edward is truly just a big kid. Okay? And so that's why I'm like, as far as him getting along with the boys, now that he's going to find his place that is acceptable, because he already knows they have a very involved father. However, he is going to be the stepfather, and that also comes with his own place and presence. So eventually they come back inside, and Marissa goes upstairs to go help the boys unpack. And let's be honest, we all know she ain't gonna unpack none of those boys. She sat at the top of the stairs to hear how that conversation went between Edward and Mike. That's what we knew happened, okay? So, of course, they're both awkward. Sitting at the table, the item room, the island, like, okay, like, hey, nice to meet you. Like, where do we start? Like, because we didn't have a talk. We're meeting, where do we start? And so, they kind of break the ice a little bit, like, hey, and of course, everyone's, hey, I'm just, I'm going to be the stepfather. I just don't really know how to, find myself, so on and so forth. And interesting enough, we have Mike who's like, I'm going to be very honest with you. I might not have been the best husband, but I'm a damn good ex-husband. And what he really was trying to say, he should have said, I'm a damn good father. Okay, to my boys. I'm a damn good father. And we co-parent the hell out of this arrangement. Okay? And so he's like, here's what I ask. You're here now, and I'm just concerned that when it gets to a certain point, based off my history with Marissa, and there's some arguing and carrying on, I'm concerned about how you're going to react, because I don't need your reactions from your anger making my boys feel safe. So if you feel like you're getting to a certain place, essentially step out. Because if my boys call me because you done threw some shit off the table and you having a whole fit because Marissa done said some shit, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to knock on the door when I get here. I'm going to bust the door down like a big bad wolf, and you're not going to have to see each other eye to eye. That's what it's going to be. Other than that, we cool. We ain't got no issues. But when it comes to my boys, I need you to understand that I don't play. And I'm going to tell you something right now. There's just something sexy about that. But most importantly, I'm the same damn way. I'm just setting the boundaries for you. I'm giving you my lines. I want to establish this head on because I need you to know my anxiety, right? I don't want my boys and my kids to be in certain situations. And he told Marissa the same thing, I'm sure. I'm very sure he said the same thing. If you two ain't get along, take that shit to the driveway and you go for a ride or do a little power walk. And so Edward is like, he's just trying to intimidate me and all of this. And he can be aggressive. I can be aggressive too. And so, like, that's all this is. But I get it. It's his kids. And I'm sure Edward's like, has never probably been in a position where he's having to deal with a baby daddy. And if we're being honest, it's probably not very often most guys have to deal with another man who's serious about his kids, because unfortunately we don't hold a lot of men and fathers to the standards to which they should be at this point. So, I didn't think Mike was being aggressive. I think Mike is an intense person. I think he is someone who cares about what he cares about, and he wants to get his point across. And I do think Mike might have a little trauma from not being heard in his past and not moving forward. He just wants to be heard and seen. And that way we're all on the same page. So if he does pop off, where I'm popping off from. I'm the same way. If I start to pop off and I have my temper, I'm pretty good at preparing people, saying, here's what's going to get me upset. Once we get to this point and you don't get another to get me upset, you shouldn't have to question where my anger is coming from. You already know where it's coming from. We can discuss how I probably should not have gotten to that point. We can discuss a little bit as to how I can do a better job with my reactions at my big age. But we're not going to have so much conversation about, oh my God, what happened? No. You know what the fuck happened. So anywho, now Mike dials it back. Mike is like, he's like, hey, I'm just going to say this. When I was with Marissa, here's where I was at. And I thought that was a bit big and vulnerable of Mike to just be upfront and say, when I was in this marriage with Marissa, her parents, her daddy, they be saying stuff. They made comments, like I couldn't get my business off the ground. She comes from money, and then I'm like the new guy coming in. Like I felt less than. I didn't feel as if I was really being a man and everything, and I couldn't measure up. And that probably is what led to their divorce, because there was probably a lot of issues with him not feeling as if he was good enough. And then he was taking that out on her and probably the household based off what other people said. And so Everett's like, yeah, I kind of feel a little bit the same way. I'm coming from nothing, and now I have all this, and so on and so forth. And Mike kind of come off as like, yo, listen, let me say something right now. Because it probably got a little tricky for him. And he was like, I'm going to tell you this. Bunk all that other stuff. It don't matter what nobody say about you, because here's the thing. All that matters is she likes you. She looked at you. She loves you. She brought you into this country. She brought you into the house, and she brought you around our kids. He said my kids, but he brought you around kids. This already tells me that, listen, whatever I might think or other people may think, I trust Marissa to not bring the wrong characters into her household, especially around our kids. So since you already passed those marks, don't worry about all that. Just be confident in what you did. Now, Edward took that as he's trying to give me advice. And I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't Mike. I'm not going to have these issues. I'm going to be blah, 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 because he's been caught as a defensive mechanism. Young blood, Edward, I like you. I like you a bit. However, this is that part where sometimes you just need to marinate on the words and maybe not focus on who it's coming from, because, I think Mike was coming from a very solid place. And while he isn't someone who I think is very cuddly and soft, he was telling you some things that I think a lot of people would have wished to have heard, would have wanted to have here. And this man, they have their own history, and he's giving you some advice that you should probably take heed to, because you're already picking up on, while not meeting Marissa's family, that she's starting to treat you like a child, and like you are a new accessory in her household and not someone who's going to be a potential partner. So he's giving you very, very sound advice. And so we really end up with that. And let's be honest, Michael was a bit intense. He is. He's a bit intense, but do I think that he was trying to intimidate Edward and like do all that? Actually, no. Because he did soften up and he was trying to like get on the same page with Edward, because he had not. And no telling what Marissa has said to Mike about Edward, because we know what Marissa has been telling Edward about Mike. I said this once before and I'm going to say it again. The issues that are going to happen in this relationship, I highly doubt are going to be initiated from her boys, Edward, or Mike. I think the issues that we're going to be seeing is going to be stemming from Marissa, the connecting party between everybody. I really do. And she's going to have to, I need to know, what is Marissa looking for from Edward? Is he meant to be a sex slave? Is he meant to be a nanny? Because we get into her going into, with Edward, how she wants to have her bed done and how the lines on the pillows and the comforter have to line up a certain way and all this other stuff. Marissa is more OCD than Katie could ever be. Okay. She likes things a certain way. And you know, I get it. I 100% get it. That people say when you get to a certain age, some people just like things to be a certain way. Okay. I also believe though, that when you are getting with another person, there has to be a discovery into finding out the things in which that you care about and figuring out what does the other person care about. Like, I'm going to be a prime example about something. When it comes to me and my relationship, I am typically the one who is the clean one, who likes to, I love to clean. I like to organize. I like just having everything in this place. And when I was living alone, I was really bad about that. And as someone who doesn't even like guests in my house, you know, I'm someone who has my cats trained, you know, for God's sakes, on how I like to be done things. It was a bit tough for me having someone come into my space, or even when we got our own place together, it was tough sharing it because my partner, not that he isn't clean, there is just, we go about things a different way. I'm even specific about how I want my laundry to be done, what should be washed. That's why I paid $3 for a washer and dryer. I like for things to be done a certain way. So I get that. However, you do have to make space, because I'm not trying to make my significant other feel uncomfortable in what is supposed to be their own space. And so I will admit, I have gotten a little bit lax about certain things. Like it doesn't matter if the bed is done a certain way. No, not to me. Not to me. It doesn't matter. So if I'm doing it, I'm doing it because I really want to. But sometimes it doesn't. It just doesn't matter. You know, do I lax a little bit in certain things? Sure. Sure I have. You know, there's definitely a limit. Like, for example, my partner is not going to be here all month because they're at a conference and all the other stuff in different states. I have the house to myself. And I love it because I get to deep clean and I'm going to do what I want to do, as long as it's going to take me without any interference for nobody. You know, even my cats are going to realize, find a spot to jazz down somewhere. Like, I get the concept, but I say all this to say, like, y'all, I just firmly believe that even if you like things a certain way, okay, where is the leeway into it? Because I've seen relationships where, okay, I'm going to give you your own room. Or the guy has the basement. The guy has the man cave. It's like, I'm trying to figure out how is Marissa going to make space for Edward and not just be stuck on here's what I do and correcting him on everything and so forth and so forth and so forth, because it's giving more mommy vibes versus that. I'm just saying. All right, y'all. Listen, I ain't got no more. So I'm going to go ahead and go. It was definitely great talking about Marissa Edward. I know this is one of the longer ones this time around. So I would love to know y'all's comments about what do y'all feel. What do you think about this episode? I really enjoy watching this and getting to see all this. We finally got the meeting out the way. So now at this point, now we're getting into the real 90 days of what this season is going to be about between Marissa and Edward. So one of your comments downtown, and we'll be talking soon in the next video. Have a good day, y'all. Bye.